Hello again, my friends. How's everyone doing today? It's Carpo here, and this video is somewhat I've got my cup of coffee here and my vape, and I'm going to sit back like some armchair philosopher. Of course they're armchair philosophers. Everyone's an armchair philosopher. Right? I mean, you do your thinking when you're chilling. So, take this for what you will. I've made a couple videos lately about gurus and false prophets and stuff, and I thought yesterday I was sitting there and I thought, somebody's going to say, damn Carpo, if you're going to sit here and you're going to talk shit about all these gurus and say that this isn't real or that isn't real, or be cautious, you know, who to believe, then what do we believe? And who do we listen to? So, I spent a couple hours yesterday in making this list for everyone out there. Maybe it was a little bit for myself as well. But, you know, I try not to seem arrogant or egotistical, as if my ideas are better than anyone else's. Obviously, I don't generally give advice or say, this is how you should live life. I propose ideas and things I've discovered and things that have worked for me in my life, and say, you know, to each his own. But at a point, you know, I've seen just so many people out there telling others what to do and how to live their life. You know, I used to believe this, and then I found this, and then I found this, and I used to believe this, but then I discovered this was the truth. And all the while, all this bullshit flowing back and forth between people. And really, we want to get down to the root questions of what things can we all share. So, for example, if I was sitting here as a Christian telling you about the most important things in life, I'd tell you things like, you know, give your heart to Jesus, or that pray a certain amount of times, or go to church. And these would be things that not everyone would agree with, because not everyone's on that same wavelength. And if I was, say, a New Age guru, and I was telling you, you don't need this, but you do need to meditate this often, and you should, you know, these are the particular gods, and all the associations with the religion, and have this talisman, and wear this kind of robe, half the people would say it's total bullshit too. So what I'm getting at, and what I wrote down here was 4 pages of notes, and it's 25, basically, I think there's about 25 there, 25 keys or tips to living a better life, as I see this. And I spent some time on this, and I tried to keep it as neutral as possible. Things that one person can't say, yeah, well, that doesn't work for everybody. But there are going to be some things that not everyone will be able to, you know, agree with, maybe, but I think for the most part, most people will find these to be useful tools for living. So, what I wrote is, okay, fine, so there are no gurus, then what is the best path to living a fulfilling life? So, be authentic in your feelings and observe how you react to situations, and you will learn a lot about yourself. I guess if I try to explain each one of these as I go, then it'll probably take forever on the video, so I'm just going to go down the list and pause between them, perhaps. So, maybe give a little note here and there. Be authentic in your feelings and observe how you react to situations. You'll learn a lot about yourself. And that means that even if you tend to just, you know, jump out or react a certain way or scream, observe why you do that, and it will help you a little bit to, in the future, maybe not act just out of instinct or act a fool, so to speak. Allow people into your life. Codependency is okay. We can help each other see ourselves more clearly and honestly. Accept who you are and realize that we are all self-critical, and abandon the illusion that there are perfect people. They just hide their fears and faults better. Never assume you're entitled to anything in life, even if you have earned it. Just embrace what comes your way and be grateful for the little things you do have. That doesn't mean that you can't yearn for more or have more. It just means to never assume that you're going to get something just because you're entitled to it. You'll be let down more often than you realize. Seek out the positive side of every situation, however grim it may seem. All things are lessons. Find the good. And yes, even if the golden lining is just not doing it again or learning the lesson, there's always something. It's like I heard someone say, if you're not finding the good or the positive side of a situation, you just haven't looked hard enough. Use caution not to lean in one direction or the other too far. You may fall over. All extremes exist because they have one side to consider and another side to consider. And yeah, that's holding balance within all of your views. And it's difficult to do, especially if we want to lean towards a certain belief or thought pattern. Don't base who you are on a group, but don't isolate yourself either. Find peers. And I think that that's a crucial one. You know, a lot of us think that we're better off alone because our ideals are, that nobody understands us. But also we realize that we don't even understand ourselves without having other people. It's other people around us who have helped us to learn, educate, and speak to ourselves and others so we can express the way we feel. So we're partially, entwined within that. I think escapism is kind of the way that people want to say that this is how I think, and if the rest of the world doesn't like it, then I'm just going to walk away from it. But it can be useful to be alone, and it can be useful to have peers. Seek out a passion that moves you, even if you have no skills. Keep trying. Anything can pass for art if you look hard. And, just stacking rocks at the beach, even sitting and singing a song to yourself. Maybe your art is simply sitting quietly and pondering. Philosophy in itself can be an art. So don't belittle yourself. If you have something that takes your attention, enjoy it and embrace it. Never shy away from knowledge merely because it conflicts with what you want to believe. Admitting error is a strength that helps us grow, not to stagnate. And I can't really elaborate much. I think that one's pretty self-evident. If you don't want to learn something just because it doesn't sound right, then you're missing the whole point. It doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't want to hear things that you don't agree with. You should hear them so you can confirm the reasons why you disagree with them. That's growing. Realize that true wealth and success is measured in happiness, not material gain. However, don't neglect your desire for material happiness. We are here on earth after all. And that's a tough one to really explain. It could have a video all its own, and probably will down the road. But the idea that we neglect the material world because we're afraid of being attached to it. In Buddhism, it would be the attachment to non-attachment, as the Zen master would say. You're too attached to non-attachment. We're here on the planet, and there are wonderful smells and tastes and flavors and things that we can consume, things that we can observe, feelings we can have, and why not? Do it. Get the most out of it. I mean, that's what earthly realm is. Unfortunately, when we get into the religious realms, a lot of folks tend to think that the afterlife or some other life than this one is the most important, and that's where we get into a lot of disagreements on, what's important right now. In other words, some folks would rather say, well, even if the, climate's getting destroyed or the earth is getting polluted, it's okay because it's in God's hands. Whereas others would say it's kind of up to us, and there's a lot of conflict there, but I think both sides can agree that we should enjoy some of the earthly things that we have here. In other words, I think it says in the Bible, I've given you all the seed-bearing plants and herbs to use, which is always quoted from stoners. The next one here is, don't impede anyone else's happiness in order to obtain your own. And that's a very simple value that can't be overstated. In other words, a lot of these satiation and personal gain, when people talk about getting yours, they forget that get everything you could possibly want. If you want to be wealthy, if you want to be healthy and happy and have abundance, do it. But it should never come at the cost of other people and closing your eyes to others being harmed. Trust your heart, but learn to read it first. Be true to our feelings. This means that a lot of people say, I'm just following what my heart tells me, and often our hearts are right, but we do have to learn to read it, because sometimes we're mistaking what we want to feel for what we really feel. In other words, you'll get a gut feeling about something, and you'll go with it, and it'll work out. Another time, that gut feeling might really just be a heartbreak because it's something that conflicts with what you want to believe. That's up to the individual to seek out and find. Take time each day to reflect on what you have done and how you feel. Take notes and keep a journal of our progress. And that's something I wish I would have done a lot when I was younger, but this is like one of my journals now that I just write all my notes in when I have them. And voice recorders are great too, but things tend to get lost in the digital world. Pen and paper is awesome to really look back and flip back 10 pages back, and I see that probably half the things I'm saying here I might even disagree with in the past, or maybe I was into gurus at a particular time and I can see my progress. Marking your progress is something that is important because our memories tend to be a little flawed. Set aside time for yourself. Take a vacation and enjoy existence. Having something to look forward to is important. You know, every year we planned for a vacation. It was always different places. We'd go camping, or we went to Florida a couple times, like when we got married, my wife and I. And saving up, like, her tips. She's a waitress, so we'd save tips in like this, jar, and it was our vacation fund. And something that simple is something to look forward to. And it's the reason why I'm going to this Eclipse Festival this summer, and why next week I'm going to the regional Burning Man soak. I'm like really looking forward to all these events I'm going to. I'm probably going to see the Dead next month, and like concerts to me are something that's what I look forward to. But for others it could be anything, an art installation, even a friend coming to visit, or even visiting the city or visiting the country, depending on where you live. So I better get going here. Running out of time here, right? Look reality in the face and acknowledge your mortality. So I'm going to make sure that the camera is still rolling here before I continue. Oh, good. Yes, good. I don't want to go too deep into this one because I've made probably videos about this in the past, but the idea that, hey, yeah, we're going to die. And that kind of goes back to the idea of living the best life we can while we're here, without getting into the details about why or how we're here, but just knowing that we are here now. That's like the simplest philosophy. Reality is what we know. And so, onwards. When questioning an action and how a belief or a gesture can affect others, ask yourself what the world would be like if everyone acted that way or did that. And that probably wasn't worded the best. Basically, if you're trying to decide whether a behavior or a certain way you want to be is conducive with, the world around you, just imagine if everyone did that. For example, if you say, well, I'm just going to steal a little bit from my friend. What if everyone stole a little bit from their friend? Or I'm just going to cheat a few people. What if everyone cheated a few people? And I think that reflecting on the whole, the big picture, gives us a kind of a better idea of, a little bit of, whether what we're doing is, we're just justifying it because we want to gain something. Laugh a lot. And never be afraid to cry. Cultivate emotion, as it's what makes us human. But don't let your emotions control your reason. And that's a tough one. Some people abandon emotion completely, and others become way too emotional. So that's a personal search there. Stay curious. Ask about everything. Knowledge is power, not by the power it gives you, but by the freedom it gives us from ignorance and confusion. Once we learn what is worth knowing, we find education to be a hobby. And a quick note on that, what I've found is some people have said, learning, there's just too much to learn and it becomes overwhelming. At a certain point, once you've learned enough different subjects, at least a little bit of each one, you can start to piece things together and put things on the shelf and start to decide what doesn't matter. And you can actually, I've become better at filtering out things that I'm not interested in wasting time on. But you got to be cautious with that because you still want to give time to everything to make sure that you're not missing something. Look for the similarities between all things and the differences. Embrace them. Analyze symbols and metaphors in stories and in nature. It's like seeing the archetypes of the patterns of things and this, what I love to call the fractal nature of life, that as above so below, that everything larger is represented somewhere small. And even our thoughts, when we're thinking about something, we can compare that to like the greater picture, and it's very difficult to explain, but I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about. Go with the flow. Ebb and flow with the tides. Try not to resist, because you'll get caught up and you'll just be miserable. Don't have expectations. Things change. Plans change. You can make plans, but be aware that you need to be flexible in everything in life. Be nice to people. Seriously, be nice. That's what I wrote. It's just such a simple thing, but, there's so many people who find it necessary to be rude to others or laugh at their misfortunes, and those are the kind of people I don't really enjoy being around. Be humble. But don't be afraid to take a recognition for your hard work, because appreciation breeds motivation. And that's balancing humility with ego. It's not always the easiest thing. Never assume everything is settled in science, religion, politics, or general life. The reason opposites exist is because they are extremes of the same scale. But like hot and cold, are mere objective and personal opinion. If the answers were clear on any subject, they would have been settled long ago. Remember how many people came before you with the same hopes, dreams, desires, beliefs, and questions. And those questions we ask do not always have clear answers. Be satisfied with a maybe. I think that one's crucial and self-explanatory. And the last one here is, ups and downs are part of all lives. Be sure to recognize the most important time is always now. So, I think that, all of those are basic, not common sense issues, because I don't know if there's such a thing as common sense, but rather things that any individual from any background, from any race, religion, culture, can find useful and beneficial in their lives. Of course, it's just speaking some stuff. Here's what I'd like to do is to start a rational, video series of realistic, down-to-earth, things that we can actually use and share and benefit from. Not ones that are partial to a particular belief system, or insist that you buy some magic crystal wand, or that you take this class or course, because the true wisdom comes from within, but is also cultivated through our association with others around us. So, I'll leave it at that, and hopefully that kind of lends a little bit of understanding to where I'm coming from. It's not that I'm anti-guru, because some of us do need teachers. It's just a trick of how much money are you paying someone to help you. And I think a lot of these things should run on a donation schedule. Like a lot of self-help people want to charge you thousands of dollars to give you common sense things that really pretty much anything I said there can be summed up in one of these, New Age beliefs or whatnot. So anyway, I gotta go, and hope y'all have a wonderful day. Take care of yourself. Be happy, smile, and be nice, and all that shit.